We start today with a stunning speech from President Joe Biden last night defending democracy. Joe Biden had to give a speech saying democracy is a good thing and we should work to keep it, and we should fight against the people that want to destroy it and to want to tear it down. Imagine that. Imagine a situation in 2022, almost 2023 United States, where we have a movement in the country so unhinged, but also so powerful, not overwhelmingly powerful. They didn't succeed in 2020, but they didn't come that far. Let's be honest. A movement powerful enough in its extremism and unhinged nature that the current president, on the proverbial eve, not the literal eve, but the proverbial eve of the 2022 midterms, a president who won, even though they say he lost, by the way, had to come out and defend democracy and argue we shouldn't become violent to overthrow democracy. That's a bad thing. It is a disgusting reality that we have to face, that this is where we are in almost 2023. Let's start with Joe Biden very clearly talking about what is the origin of this problem.
You know, American democracy is under attack because the defeated former president of the United States refuses to accept the results of the 2020 election. He refuses to accept the will of the people. He refuses to accept the fact that he lost. He has abused his power and put the loyalty to himself before loyalty to the Constitution. And he's made a big lie an article of faith in the MAGA Republican Party.
Indeed.
The minority of that party. The great irony
about half of the party, let's be fair,
about the 2020 election is that it's the most attacked election in our history. And yet, there's no election in our history that we can be more certain of its results.
Yeah. We can be completely sure that Joe Biden genuinely won. And Joe Biden not only putting the blame and the responsibility squarely on Trump and MAGA, but also pointing out that this is an extremely consequential midterm election, which is something I've been saying at this point for a year or longer.
I know there's a lot at stake in these midterm elections, from our economy to the safety of our streets to our personal freedoms, the future of health care, Social Security, Medicare. It's all important. But we'll have our differences. We'll have our difference of opinion. And that's what it's supposed to be. But there's something else at stake.
Right.
Democracy itself. I'm not the only one who sees it. Recent polls have shown that an overwhelming majority of Americans believe our democracy is at risk, that our democracy is under threat. They too see that democracy is on the ballot this year.
These are the types of speeches that often opposition leaders give in dictatorships. Okay. It is out of this world cuckoo that this is the type of speech that Joe Biden finds himself giving. And we're going to get to how the right wing was triggered by this speech. He made clear, even when it comes to January 6th, that was not the end of the assault on democracy. And as you know, if you've been following this show, there are dozens, if not more, Republicans running right now on the ballot who deny the results of the election.
Look, even as I speak here tonight, 27 million people have already cast their ballot in the midterm elections. Millions more will cast their ballots in the final days leading up to November the 8th, excuse me. And for the first time, this is the first time since the national election of 2020, once again, we're seeing record turnout all over the country. And that's good. We want Americans to vote. We want every American's voice to be heard. Now we have to move the process forward. We know that more and more ballots are cast in early voting or by mail in America. And we know that many states don't start counting those ballots till after the polls close on November 8th. That means in some cases we won't know the winner of the election for a few days until a few days after the election. It takes time to count all legitimate ballots. in a legal and orderly manner. It's always been important for citizens in democracy to be informed and engaged. Now it's important for citizens to be patient as well. That's how it's supposed to work. This is also the first election since the events of January 6th, when the armed, angry mob stormed the U.S. Capitol. I wish I could say the assault on our democracy had ended that day.
It didn't.
But I cannot. As I stand here today, there are candidates running for every level of office in America, for governor, Congress, Attorney General, Secretary of State, who won't commit. They will not commit to accepting the results of elections that they're running in.
In fact, they're saying, if I lose, it's rigged. If I win, it's fair. Joe Biden also addressing the rise in the number of people who are saying violence to achieve your political goals is okay.
We have to be honest with ourselves, though. We have to face this problem. We can't turn away from it. We can't pretend it's just going to solve itself. There's an alarming rise in the number of our people in this country condoning political violence.
Yeah.
Or simply remaining silent, because silence is complicity. The disturbing rise of voter intimidation, the pernicious tendency to excuse political violence, or at least trying to explain it away. We can't allow this sentiment to grow. We must confront it head on now. It has to stop now. I believe the voices excusing or calling for violence and intimidation are a distinct minority in America.
I do not know. Well, a minority in America, let's hope so. A minority in the Republican Party, I'm not quite sure. And unfortunately, many of the people minimizing the January 6th Trump riots, not necessarily welcoming, but certainly inspiring the perceived legitimacy of political violence in the minds of their supporters. Many of them could win, and some of them probably will. President Biden going on to connect Trump's big lie on the attack on Paul Pelosi, and they are connected.
All this happened after the assault. And it just, it's hard to even say. It's hard to even say. After the assailant entered the home asking, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" Those are the very same words used by the mob when they stormed the United States Capitol on January the 6th.
Literally.
When they broke windows, kicked in the doors, brutally attacked law enforcement, roamed the corridors, hunting for officials, and erected gallows to hang the former Vice President Mike Pence. It was an enraged mob that had been whipped up into a frenzy by a president repeating over and over again the big lie that the election of 2020 had been stolen.
Yep. It is indeed the exact same line that you follow through those phenomena. Joe Biden warning ahead of time, as I mentioned before, that it will take some time to count all of the legitimate ballots and that's okay. And then eventually Biden closing by saying the following.
Year, we're often not faced with questions of whether the vote we cast will preserve democracy or put us at risk. But this year we are. This year, I hope you'll make the future of our democracy an important part of your decision to vote and how you vote. I hope you'll ask a simple question of each candidate you might vote for. Will that person accept the legitimate will of the American people, of the people voting in his district or her district?
Yeah, it's shocking that that's the top line question we have to ask. You've got the candidates who have their policy and they will accept the results of the election. And then you've got the candidates that will not. That's a major dividing line. Who respects the will of the voter here?
Will that person accept the outcome of the election, win or lose? The answer to that question is vital. And in my opinion, it should be decisive. On the answer to that question hangs the future of the country we love so much and the fate of the democracy that has made so much possible for us.
Yeah. A good speech, a really dystopian reality in which such a speech is necessary and logical. So Joe Biden did a few important things here other than defend the idea that we thought we had a democracy. We should probably work to try to keep that. He issued a sort of warning about Republicans planning to undermine the vote on Tuesday. And we're going to have clips later on and on tomorrow's show of ways in which they are already doing this and other examples. So the Republicans are already doing that. They're making it clear. They're telegraphing they're going to be doing that on Tuesday. Joe Biden sort of trying to sound the alarm in advance, the way we were doing and many in progressive media were doing in advance of the 2020 election. It was very clear what Trump was going to do. And at 2 something in the morning on election night 2020, he came out and said, oh, I won, even though he had not won. And then the other thing is he's setting expectations about it'll take a few days in some of these elections to know the results, particularly because in some of these places, they don't actually start counting anything until the polls close. There will be a whole bunch. Pennsylvania is an example. Actually, I don't remember if Pennsylvania doesn't start until the polls close, but they stop at a particular time. A whole bunch of accumulated mail-in and early ballots will be there, but they will not start to be counted until polls close, in many cases at 8 p.m. local time. So an important speech, very sad that he had to make it. Let's now look at the reactions from the right. Plastic is everywhere we look, and not enough is being done about it. 100 billion plastic bags are used and thrown away every year, but you can help make a change. Our sponsor, Hold On, makes trash and kitchen bags that are heavy duty, plant-based, non-toxic, and 100% home compostable, which means they break down in weeks rather than decades. They don't fill up our landfills. They don't pollute our oceans. Their Zip Seal kitchen bags come in sandwich or gallon bag sizes to fit your needs. And the best part about Hold On bags is they work. I use them at home. They're just as good as all of the name brand bags. You fill them up, they stretch, and they don't break. Everybody uses trash bags and freezer bags. If you care about the planet, you can do something by using Hold On bags instead, and it's a really easy way to do your part. Go shop plant-based bags to replace single-use plastics all over your home. You'll save 20% when you go to holdonbags.com/Pacman and use the code Pacman. The link is down below.